Greetings, fairy tale lovers. It's me again, Scarlett Kol, here to introduce you to another guest author in our Kingdom of Fairytales series. I'm not gonna lie, this week I'm completely excited to introduce you to this author because she's kind of my favorite. You'll see why. But without further ado, I'd like to introduce you to Scarlett Kol. However, before I go, just remember, next week there won't be a video, it'll just be a playlist of Fallon's favorite songs. And I'll be back in 2 weeks with Kingdom Confidential for this season. Enjoy, and I hope that you like her as much as I do.
Hi there, my name is Scarlett Kol and I am a young adult author. I feel like we probably know each other quite well already, as you have been seeing me on your YouTube channel for several months now. I believe it's in the beginning of December. That Scarlett is a little bit different than this Scarlett. She's a little bit more perky, I guess. I am pretty perky, but not that much on a regular basis. And she has a fantastic tiara collection that I would love to borrow periodically. I'm starting to think that maybe I should have named her something else, as she does feel like a little bit of a caricature of me, but I guess that ship has already sailed. However, if anybody is interested, they could leave something in the comments below and we can try to name Princess Scarlett to something else, maybe a little bit more entertaining. Anyhow, this was a little tough for me to do a get to know Scarlett video because, as I said, we've been hanging out since December of 2019. So I have read for you guys, I have talked to you guys, I have done a lot of different things, but now it's finally my turn for my books as a guest author. So if you haven't checked them out, they are King of Beasts, Heir of Beauty, Throne of Betrayal, and God of Illusion, and they are based on Beauty and the Beast. It was really, really fun to write them. I love Beauty and the Beast, so it was great to be able to write a character based on that. Plus, I very rarely get to write in the male perspective, which is kind of fun. I do have another book coming out in November that is dual POV. It's called Keeper of Shadows, where I will be writing the male POV again. So if you did like that, you might want to check that out. I do have a link in the description box below of where you can check out all of my books. But for right now, let's talk about maybe me a little bit. So if you wanted to get to know me, I am originally from northern Manitoba, that's in Canada, if you're watching from somewhere else in the world. I grew up in a small-ish town called Thompson, Manitoba, and it's quite cold up there. It is very, very chilly with the wind chill. Sometimes I've seen -74 Celsius with the wind chill. So it can get quite cold. There is permafrost up there. We're about, I think, 6 hours from Churchill, where the polar bears are, and kind of isolated. The nice thing about that, though, is it is beautiful country, and I have to say that I am one of the fortunate people who has actually seen the Northern Lights in their complete majesty and all of their wonderful colors. So growing up there was nice to be in a smaller town where we kind of knew everybody, and I could kind of grow up in that environment and see all those wonderful things, because there's so many people in the world who will never get to see the Northern Lights or Northern country like I have. So that's wonderful. Anyways, now I'm still living in Canada, and I just moved a little bit south, even though it may not feel like it, because it is still quite cold where I live compared to some people in like Audrey, who lives in Florida or various different places like that. So, but I do love where I live. I love being Canadian, and the only thing I don't like is just making sure that I pull out my Canadian spelling in all of my books, because I do have a pretty heavy American audience. Anyhow, growing up up north also gave me the opportunity to spend a lot of time reading, and I know a lot of authors out there are huge readers, so not uncommon. I started out as a huge reader as well. I started with a lot of different books out there, but I did tend to draw towards some more of the fantasy and paranormal kind of stuff. I really enjoyed more of that contemporary fantasy and more paranormal than epic fantasy. I had a librarian who was really, really trying to get me to read Tolkien, and I did get through The Hobbit, but it really wasn't my style. As I grew up, I started reading Christopher Pike, and he is still one of my absolute favorite authors. Ideally, as a goal in my author life, is I would love to be able to write books that were as interesting to readers as they were to me. I loved that kind of horror paranormal angle, and so I definitely do kind of write books of that vein as well. And then I got into Anne Rice at 13, which was probably a little inappropriate, but hey, it's done now. And I loved vampires. Vampires were fantastic. And I read a little bit of Stephen King, but that was almost too much horror for me, not quite my style. And then obviously a big Buffy the Vampire Slayer fan. We were the same age when the show came out, so I kind of grew up with her. And I don't care what you say, I am still Team Angel through and through. I'm not a full-time author. I am a professional accountant during the day for a nonprofit organization, and I love what I do. So writing is an extra thing that I get to do, and it's great because it really allows me to keep that passion for what I want to do. Right now we are filming this video in my office. I would love to show you more of my office, but it's a complete and utter disaster right now because I am working on some edits and some final formatting for a book that I have coming out in July, and that is called Sleepless. So as I said, I kind of liked that paranormal horror thing, so I wrote a book called Sleepless, and it is about a girl who is dealing with insomnia and accidentally gets possessed by a demon. So that doesn't quite go overly well for her, but if you are interested in that book, it is called Sleepless, and it will be coming out in July, so I'm excited about that. If you haven't read any of my other books, I have a little bit of smattering of kind of everything until I kind of figured out where I wanted to go being an author. My first book that came out is called Mercury Rises, and it is a retelling of Robin Hood from the point of view of Maid Marian. It's kind of got like a little bit of a biopunk dystopian feel to it as well. I loved writing this book. Anybody who loved like the Selection series, this would kind of be your jam. The next book that I had came out was more that paranormal, and it's called Wicked Descent. It is more witches, demons, high school, that fun stuff that I loved as a kid growing up as a reader. And this book, I actually finished this book before I started even writing Mercury Rises, but just with some publication schedules, it ended up coming out 2 weeks after the first one. And this book is with Inkspell Publishing, and this one is with Ever19. I also started my Faraway High fairytale series, and this is basically how I got into writing fairytale retellings and how I got involved in Enchanted Quill. They started doing some box sets for retellings of classic fairy tales. So what I did is I started writing in a couple of those box sets, and the stories that I included, I linked them together in the same small fictitious town in Iowa called Faraway. So they're called my Faraway High fairy tale series. And so the first book in that series is Falling, which is a retelling of The Little Mermaid, but with angels, so a heavenly retelling, I guess. And then the second book in that series is called Dreamer, and it is a retelling of Sleeping Beauty, but using Celtic mythology as well. Both of these books are standalones, but happen in the same universe, kind of like that small town romance kind of vibe where, you know, if you've read all of the books, they kind of get a little bit of snippet all the way through, like kind of Easter egg kind of stuff. But if you want to read them independently, then that's totally fine too, and they will completely make sense. Also, like the Kingdom of Fairytales, where each quartet can be read individually, or you can read them all together to get the full experience. So I guess I know where I learned that trick from. And like I said, I have Sleepless, which is YA paranormal horror, coming out in July, and then I'll have Keeper of Shadows coming out in November, so November 27th, which is a dual POV it's more like a supernatural romance in that it doesn't quite follow that same paranormal romance convention. What I like to call it is, if you really liked Katie McGarry's gritty kind of romance, but with a supernatural twist. And then the third book in the Faraway High series should be coming out in September, so busy year for me. If anybody ever wants to reach me, I'm usually really active on my social media. I'm on the Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram platforms, but I also started my own YouTube channel, which is really exciting. I had started dabbling with it before I volunteered to do the Kingdom of Fairytales channel, and after I had been doing videos for them for a while, I figured it was time to branch out on my own. So if you are a writer or you're interested in writing, I do have a YouTube channel where I do writing advice on Thursdays or videos about my process or things like that. So if you want to know more about my books or what I do, you can always check that out. So I'll leave that in the comments below, link to my YouTube channel as well. So if you are done with the Kingdom of Fairytales at the end of 2020 and you've rewatched those videos 100 times, you can always come over to my channel and check out the new content that I'm putting out there. However, if you've seen my channel, and this is one of the reasons I'm bringing it up, is that most of my videos have a 5 things kind of listography kind of format. So it's usually like 5 tips for this, 5 tips on how to write kissing, all that kind of thing. So I thought, to get to know me a little bit better, I have 5 questions that I had asked around in my reader group that they'd like to know about me. And this is what they came up with. So somebody said, what is your favorite food? I don't have a specific favorite food. I have surprisingly 5 things that basically, if they fall kind of in those categories, I will eat them. And that would be anything with balsamic vinegar, buffalo chicken sauce, chocolate, cheese, or bread. I know those are absolutely awful and my body is going to hate me after that, but anything involving those 5 things, I'm pretty much in. Question number 2 was, what is your favorite TV show? Well, that changes all the time, but I have followed a lot of like that fandom kind of stuff. I said I was a huge Buffy fan growing up, and I still love watching that show so much. I used to watch The Vampire Diaries, Gossip Girl, anything that was on the CW, I was all about it. I'm really loving the Chilling Adventures of Sabrina. Actually, my Sabrina is up here, my Funko Pop. And I'm really liking Aries. I love to watch You on Netflix, and The Bold Type. I love the girls off The Bold Type. They are so fantastic. And I'd love to write characters that are just like them. They're so wonderful. If you haven't seen that show, you should definitely check it out. And yeah, that's pretty much, I don't actually get to watch as much television as I would like. I'm actually just started watching Supernatural last year, which everybody finds kind of amazing that I never got into that show like way back when it started. But I kind of missed the first few seasons when I was in university. And then at that point, I didn't want to jump into the arc part of the way through. So I'm actually trying to catch up on that right now. So no spoilers. And I think I'm in season 10. So I'm getting there slowly. But question number 3 was, what do you like to do when you're not writing? So like I said, I do work full time, and so I write on the side. I do have 2 boys, and they're both very, very busy in both dance and hockey. So they keep me kind of busy, and I get a lot of writing done at the rink. So you'll see a lot of pictures on my Instagram about frozen fingers, because I'm constantly bringing my computer and typing things at the rink. But when I do have spare time, I'm a huge music buff, sorry. I like to listen to music and anything that goes along with that. I love finding new artists and checking out some new stuff. I do talk about one of my new favorite artists in the upcoming Kingdom Confidential, I believe, or at least it's on my list of things, so you will hear about that coming up. I also really enjoy watching movies, and big surprise, I really like to read. So when I do get a spare minute, I'm usually reading something on my phone. I do prefer paperbacks, but sometimes you just go with what you can. The 4th question that I was given to me was, if you could pick a book that you didn't write but wished you had written, what book would it be? And I think would be Vicious by V.E. Schwab. If you haven't read that book, it's really, really cool. It's about 2 guys that go to college together, and they're super smart and end up experimenting with some near-death experiences to gain supernatural powers, and they become arch nemesis throughout the book. And the one thing I really, really loved about it is the characters are done so well, and it's just such a engaging book. To be honest with you, like, there's not a huge amount of events that happen in the book, but the characters are just so engaging, and it's one of those ones that I just wish I could write like that. The other one I think too would probably be The Raven Boys by Maggie Stepfader. Maggie Stepfader's writing is just beautiful to me. I can just fall into it forever. It was a great series. The fourth book too, she takes this one massive risk, and I refuse to spoil it for anybody, but she takes this huge risk with her plot, and it was ballsy, I'm not gonna lie, and I so admire her for that. And I just wish that I could write books that are that engaging, and you can just fall into those worlds and you absolutely love it and you love those characters. So that's, I think, would be the books that I would like to write if I could be that writer. And the fifth thing was, if you weren't a writer, what would you be? I think I'd be a pastry chef, to be honest with you. I am an accountant already, and like I said, I love my job, but you know, I think if I could pick absolutely anything and it wouldn't matter, I think I'd be a pastry chef. Like, I actually love making cakes and cupcakes, and I really like to eat frosting. So there's that, but I make cakes for people sometimes and cupcakes, and I love it. I love the artistry of it, and it's really, really exciting for me. So hopefully this got you to know a little bit more about me, where I came from, about my books. I will be back in a couple of weeks to give you Kingdom Confidential for Fallon. I really, really hope you're reading this series. I loved writing it. This was my first foray into really more epic fantasy. I tend to write a lot more contemporary, so I was a little scared getting into that, but it was good, and it was a good experience. So I really hope you're enjoying the stories, and if you are, you can reach out to me on social media, or make sure you're using that hashtag KOF2020, and yeah, if there's anything, I would love to respond to that. Okay, so see you later, and it was nice to meet you.